Voice is power, and silence can be complicity. That's not a slogan, that's a life principle learned the hard way. See, every room you walk into already has a system running. Every street, every job, every relationship, every community, something is already being decided. And when you stay quiet while it's happening, the world doesn't pause and wait for your opinion. It keeps moving. Decisions get made, lines get crossed, and your silence gets counted as approval, even if that was never your intention. A lot of people confuse silence with peace. They think if they don't speak, they're avoiding trouble. But most of the time, silence doesn't remove the problem, it just removes you from the solution. When something wrong happens and nobody says anything, the message that gets sent is real clear. This is acceptable. Not because people agreed with it, but because nobody challenged it. That's how unfair systems survive. That's how disrespect grows teeth. That's how small lies turn into everyday truth. Understand this. Your voice isn't just noise. Your voice is presence. It's proof that you're paying attention. When you speak, you interrupt the flow of nonsense. You force people to look at what they're doing. And that's why silence feels safer, because speaking changes the energy in the room. It makes people uncomfortable. It exposes things that were hiding in plain sight. And not everybody wants the lights turned on. There's a price to staying quiet. It might not hit you immediately, but it always collects interest. You start compromising your values little by little. You tell yourself it's not your place, not your time, not your problem. And before you know it, you've been silent so long, you forget what your voice even sounds like. That's when people stop respecting you. Not because you're weak, but because you taught them that you won't speak when it counts. Silence becomes complicity when you know better and still choose comfort. When you see someone being disrespected and look the other way. When you hear a lie repeated and let it stand. When power is being abused and you tell yourself, that's just how it is. That's not neutrality. That's participation without fingerprints. History doesn't just remember the people who did wrong. It remembers the people who watched and said nothing. Now don't misunderstand this. Speaking up doesn't mean being loud all the time. It doesn't mean arguing for attention or clout. Real power doesn't shout, it stands. It speaks with intention. It chooses its moments. But when that moment arrives, it doesn't hesitate, because hesitation is where fear lives, and fear is the biggest ally of injustice. Every real change you've ever seen started with somebody refusing to stay silent, somebody risking their comfort, somebody deciding that their voice mattered more than their fear. And most of the time, they didn't feel ready. They didn't feel protected. They didn't feel supported. They just felt responsible to themselves, responsible to the people coming after them, responsible to the truth. When you speak, you give others permission to speak too. That's the part people don't talk about enough. Silence is contagious.